Hey, what's up, guys? Christian Van Buren here. I'm the co-founder of Ripple Effect Fatherhood. As always, I'm excited for another great interview. I met Andy here recently. He is the owner and founder of his own organization called The Secure Dad, and he's also the author of his Amazon best-selling book called Home Security, The Secure Dad's Guide. So make sure you guys check that stuff out. He's got Instagram. He's got an Instagram page. He's got a website. All those links and stuff will be in the comments. It'll be in the description on YouTube if you're somebody who watches. But definitely enjoy this segment. Get a lot of knowledge from it. He has a lot of expertise and experience in in keeping your family safe. So I loved talking to him. I'm excited to follow his social media pages, read his book, and get some more insight on some things that maybe I don't think about every day. So I hope you guys enjoy it. As always, we appreciate the love and support. Make sure you hit the subscribe bell if you're watching on YouTube. Make sure you follow us and subscribe on the podcast platforms for somebody who listens. We're looking forward to more great interviews to come. As always, thank you for being here. All right, Andy. So again, thank you so much for just being here. Honestly, thank you for being here. Thank you for being willing to be on our channel and just really educate us. Because like I told you today, but like as I was preparing the questions that I wanted to ask you, I thought to myself, I was like, man, this is actually pretty great. Like because you're bringing you're a father yourself, so you're bringing that fatherhood perspective, but also you're able to educate us on a lot of things that a lot of fathers probably don't know. Like I was telling you myself, I have a lot of basic knowledge on, I have I was in the military, right? So I don't know. We hadn't talked about that, but I have some sense of security, right? I worked in law enforcement.
Right.
However, I think that you have a lot of extensive knowledge that a lot of fathers don't, that they don't have, or they just don't even think about, you know what I mean? And so I'm excited to just have you on and just educate our audience and just shed more light and positivity to our fatherhood community. So if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself to the people.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me on your show. I like what you're doing. I like the faith aspect of everything what's going on. I think that as dads, I think it's awesome that we have podcasts like this that we can sit and listen to as either some kind of part of therapy or something like that, to try to understand, to say, hey, I'm not the only guy that's going through this. I'm not the only guy who has this question. So I absolutely appreciate what you're doing. So my name is Andy Murphy, and I am the founder of The Secure Dad. I started in 2016 because I realized that as a father, I had a lot of questions about security and safety. I knew a lot already, but I also realized that there were other people out there who were asking the same questions as I was. So I decided to start a blog about how to, protect your home and things like that, and share with people what I was learning as I was going. So that turned into a best-selling book on Amazon, and then it turned into a podcast, turned into a course, all this other stuff, and it's been amazing. It's been blessed by God, and it's awesome that I get to use use my talents in this way to help families live safer, happier lives. Because one of the things that I like to talk about with safety is that it's not scary. I don't like to be one of those people who preaches doom and gloom all the time. That's not who I am. That's not what I'm about. I'm actually, pretty much, a relaxed person who enjoys life and tries to take it one day at a time. So that's the approach that I bring to it.
Dude, that is wonderful. And I love the fact that, you said it's blessed by God. And what I realize is when we start to do things for others, when we start to live for others, God will bless it every time, and he'll bless it tenfold. You know what I mean? And so what you're doing is, it's even just the simple act of like, or honestly, I don't really think there's much. I think you make it simple, but there's it, you know what I mean? Like, which is good. I think that you just the small introduction you gave on it, the Secure Dad and just what you do, you make it simple because you don't, you know what I mean? Like you want people to receive it, but at the same time, it's a very important topic. You know what I mean? And so I think the fact that you're putting it out there for people at the very least is blessing them. And like I said, it's something that I think brings a lot of joy to the Lord. And I'm just glad that you're doing what you're doing. And I'm glad I get to have, be a part of it, man. I feel blessed to just be here, sitting here talking to you, and just to even be able to connect with you. Because this is stuff that I don't I don't necessarily think about, you know what I mean? And I'm sure there's those little things that you have that knowledge of that I'm like, oh man, like, and I'm sure we'll get into it. So my first, before we kind of roll into the questions that I wanted to ask you, I know when I was reading about you, you mentioned that there was a, you know, there may have been a situation or there was a time when you were in high school
Hmm.
that made you realize that, hey, I need to put more emphasis and focus on
Hmm.
my own personal safety, but it's also the safety of my friends and family. You want to just elaborate on that for us and kind of let us know what it
Sure.
was?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Yeah, so I was in high school way back when in 1999 when
Okay.
unfortunately the attack at Columbine High School happened. Now I was, states and states away, when it happened. I remember going to school the next day and I had the realization that if something went wrong in my school, in my classroom, our SRO, our school resource officer, was not going to be able to get to me in time.
Mm,
And it was right then and there that I had this epiphany that, hey, you know what? My own safety and response is my own responsibility. This is on me. I was given this life and I've got to be the one who takes care of it. I've got to be the one who protects myself. And a lot of people don't realize that their safety is their own responsibility until after, like, a burglary or somebody gets carjacked or things that are worse than that. And so that's, I'm kind of unique in the fact that I understood it all on my own. So in my community there had actually been a school shooting years before, and so it was just kind of swept under the rug. People didn't like to talk about it for obvious reasons,
mhm.
and so nothing was really ever done. And so even I graduated high school after this big national event had occurred and nothing really seemed to change. And so I wanted to make sure that people knew that they could be empowered to take control for themselves. They don't always have to wait on the government. They don't always have to wait on first responders. You can be the first person who responds to your emergency. And so, in doing those sorts of things, I understood the world just a little bit different. Now, you said that you were in, the military and you were in law enforcement. You've seen a different world than a lot of other people have seen. The kind of the ins and outs of life, the good, the bad, the violence, how bad it can be. And so, there's a lot of people who walk around in what I call a bubble. And they think that, life is always good, that everybody has money in the bank, as people know where their next meal is coming from, and that's not always the case. And those things drive humans to make decisions that you, as a well-meaning person, would never understand. And so it's trying to help people see the world for what it really is and what your place is in it and how you can keep yourself safe in all of that.
Wow. That's, man, I yeah, I don't know if I've heard that said in a better way. And it just further speaks to how blessed and excited I am to have you on our channel, because this is information that so many people can benefit from and will benefit from. And you know, one of the things that I really harp on, or I try to really harp on every time we post especially an interview, but something like this, I will harp on as much as I can, is the fact that anybody listening to this or watching this, please make sure you share, because you never know who you can impact, whose life can be saved by just the information that we're going to get today. So, man, I appreciate you, and the fact that you went through what you went through is even crazier, because majority of Americans, I mean, we hear about these incidences that happen at the schools, right? Um, and it strikes our emotions, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
But most of us have never, like, we can't, I can't say I know what it feels like to be
Hmm.
in that situation. I can't say, I can say how I think I would react, but in my experience, even just being in the military alone and being deployed, I realized that you don't actually know how you're going to
Right.
react to a situation until you're in it, you know?
Yes, agreed 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of people think, "Oh, I will do this," and I'll all of a sudden gain all these kung fu skills that I've never trained for in my life. And I'm like, "No, dude.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, you will not."
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be terrifying and it's gonna be bad, so that's why you train. That's
Hmm.
why you try to keep yourself out of bad situations. You try to avoid the ambush and that sort of thing. And that's what you when you devote your life to really understanding that your safety is your own responsibility as an individual. Then when you get married, then your wife's safety is also your responsibility. She is also responsible for herself, but as a husband, you are also responsible for that. When your children come along, you are their protector as well. So it keeps growing and growing. And the more that you know, the more information you can impart to them so that they will be knowledgeable and they will have that wisdom that they need to avoid those bad situations so they don't ever have to know what it feels
Mm,
like.
right. Oh man, so essential. And so I guess let's well, if you want to just tell everybody about your family. I know you're a father, right?
Mhm.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've terrible at math here. I've been married since 2007, and
Okay,
it's been good. My son is 10 years old now, and
nice.
he has seen a lot in his 10 years. Just COVID alone. I mean,
Mm,
that's just like this huge, like world changing thing where all of a sudden, he was at school one day and then all of a sudden he didn't set foot in it again for like a year and a half, all that sort of stuff. And he's adapted well to all those things. So, being a husband and being a father is good. It's stressful, as I'm sure you know, but it's good. And it's, when you can have open relationships with your wife and with your kids, to be able to talk to them about the serious things, that's going on. When you see a news story that is something that bad that happened in your area, you need to be brave enough to talk to them about it. You can't just let your kids go out into the world and let somebody else teach them how to
mm-hmm,
protect themselves. You have to take that responsibility. And you know what? It may make you uncomfortable, some of the stuff that you have to talk about, but who would you rather your children learn that from?
mm-hmm,
You, the internet, somebody in class, that sort of thing. So, as fathers, we have to step up and not only physically protect our families, we also have to make sure that they are mentally aware of what's going on around them and how they can protect themselves. And when you can share a news story and things like that in their own way, whatever makes sense for your age range of kid,
mm-hmm,
so that they get the message. And so when they start to see a problem develop, they say, "Oh, wait a minute, Dad told me this. I
mm,
should probably not go over there." And
right.
that could be could be the difference between life and death for somebody that we care about.
That's huge. A couple things that I just want to touch on your answers. First thing is you mentioned the word uncomfortable, and I think that
Hmm.
that's
Yeah.
huge. Like especially as fathers, man, it's it's so important to, like you said, have those uncomfortable. You have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable,
Yes.
because
Yes.
when a situation happens that you wish you could have prevented or could have been prevented, and you look back and you're like, man, if I had just had that uncomfortable conversation, because essentially it's just a conversation, but
Right.
it's so much more than that when it becomes something that your child or your spouse can use to protect themselves. And so yeah, actually our CEO of our company, Family First Life, his name's Sean Mike. He one of the things that he says that I love is that, when everybody's comfortable, nothing gets done, right?
Yeah.
You gotta
Yeah.
you gotta be uncomfortable. And really, he when I heard him say that, he was talking about sales, right? Life insurance, but
Sure.
it plays such a big part in what we're talking about, and so that's huge. And then the second thing that I kind of want to just that I just wanted to further expand on is just the sense of, well, I mean, I guess it goes back to just the whole uncomfortable conversation and just making sure that we are being realistic as fathers. We're being realistic, and really, when you were talking about, when those news stories happen, and we see them, right, we don't just brush it off as though,
Right.
hey, I don't want to talk about it, or maybe you're like, hey, we're in an area where that's probably not likely to happen, so we don't have to talk about it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it's just, don't run away from those conversations. Anyway, that's huge. And so with that, here at Ripple Effect Fatherhood, our aim is really just to create a movement that inspires, promotes, and encourages the positive presence of fatherhood in the lives of everyone. And so I love that we're having this conversation, because when I started reading your biography and started to learn about what you do, I was like, wow, I didn't even think about the fact that the safety and security of my family plays a big part in the positive presence that I provide to my son and my wife. That's huge. So I'm really glad again to have you on. And so when I ask these questions, I'm going to ask them as though, like, I'm going to use a lot of I'm going to ask them from a first person standpoint. Like, I'm going to use like my and I and me, because I'm asking the questions that I want answers to for my own household, but also I'm asking them on behalf of anybody else who's listening who hasn't thought to ask the questions, or just is maybe they're afraid to ask the questions, whatever the case may be.
Sure.
Hey, here you go. Here's your answers. You know what I mean? From an expert. So, man, my first question to you is, how does protecting my home play a role in my success as a father?
Sure. Great question. Great question. I came to the understanding in doing work for the Secure Dad that safety is the foundation for happiness. Because
Mm,
if you don't feel safe in your home, if you don't feel safe in your relationships, if you don't feel safe in your employment, it's not going to feel right. Nothing's going to work. You're just going to be off. The vibes aren't going to check the way you want them to.
right.
So, it's funny. You'll hear like your wife say, I feel safe when I'm with you, or when your kids can fall asleep, next to you in public. They know that dad's watching over. That's safety. They know that that's there, and you may not have to sit your 2-year old down and say, hey, daddy's going to do everything possible to keep you safe, and you don't have to worry. They'll just know
Mm,
by the way that you act, the way that you respond to things, and the way that you carry yourself, that you're going to keep them safe.
mm,
And I know that, I've had a lot of friends who grew up in bad situations where they didn't feel safe at home. They did everything they could to avoid being at home because sometimes dad was the bad guy in that household. And so when you, as a father, can bring that stability into the house just from the emotional appeal alone, not necessarily the physical safety, but just the emotional safety that you would bring in there, that makes a world of difference.
mm,
Because when everybody can just be sitting and relaxing at home, that's when you can ask your kids about how their day is going, learn what's going on in their lives, what they're thinking, how your wife is doing. When they feel like they're safe with you because they know that you're not going to be threatening. And if there is a threat, you're going to handle it. That's huge.
mm,
That's huge. And so as I feel like the Bible says, and I feel like kind of our culture says that men are called to be protectors. Obviously, women can too. Don't mishear me.
mhm.
But this is a role that we have to take, and it's going to benefit us not only physically but emotionally and spiritually as well.
Man, amen to that. That I tried to remember the what you said, the relationship between safety and happiness. You said it in such a great way. And I don't know if you remember exactly how you said it.
It
Um,
was a foundation.
there
Yeah.
you go. There you
Yeah.
go. That was golden. And something that I'm gonna just emulate my role as a father from. You know what I mean? Like that foundation that safety provides, and how much of a key role it has in the happiness in your household. And that's a great answer to the question, and really kind of gives me that peace of mind of, hey, this is why I'm focused on security. And I like the way you answered it too, because it goes back to what you were saying in the beginning, as far as not making the conversation scary. Like, hey, I'm
Hmm.
focused on
Yeah.
the safety of my family because I'm focused on the happiness of my family. And that makes the conversation more like, hey, I welcome that. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Hmm.
Oh man, that's awesome. And so I guess what are some, as far as my house goes, right? Like as far as
Okay.
my home, give us, like, I guess just maybe a couple, maybe two or three ways that, we can protect our homes that I probably don't know about outside of, like, for example, I have ADT security, right? So I got a
Good.
camera on the outside of the house and on the inside. That's pretty much it as far as, that goes.
Sure. Yeah. Well, first off, everybody's living situation is different, and there's no like one size fits all to home security, because it depends on where you live. Do you live in a freestanding house? Do you live in an apartment? Do you live in a duplex? All that sort of stuff.
Right.
So I'll kind of preference this as, let's say that you're in a single family, freestanding home, that
Yep.
sort of thing. So if that's where you're coming from, I absolutely like the fact that you've got a an alarm system, because I think that needs to be. You need to make sure that your doors are monitored, your windows are monitored, have a glass break sensor, that sort of thing. I like cameras on the outside of the house, and pay for the monthly monitoring. A
Okay.
lot of people will get these things and they'll stick them up and then just be like, oh, it's okay. Because if a criminal does kick in your front door, and the alarm goes off and they realize that's all it is, it's just an alarm, they're just going to go smash the alarm and then grab whatever it is and they're going to be gone.
Mm.
There's no incentive for them to leave at that point. So pay for that monitoring, make sure you get that alert. Plus, you want somebody to have your back, like, hey, Mr. Murphy, your alarm's going off. I'm like, I have a plan that I will go through when that happens. And I want to make sure that if something goes wrong, somebody's going to call 911 to get the police there, to get an ambulance there, whatever it is. So it's just that nice little safety net to have. One of the things that I tell people a lot is you need to go take a look at your house and put yourself in the front yard and put yourself in the mindset of a criminal and say, how would I break into my house? It might make you a little uncomfortable, but we've talked about that. We're going to step out of that discomfort to understand what's going on. So, like, if you realize, hey, you know what, my bushes are really, really kind of tall and somebody could easily be standing there to attack me as I'm coming out of my front door or in my front door, that's a big thing. So let's cut those bushes back. Oh, hey, you know what? That window, it doesn't really close all the way because it swells up. But I bet you somebody can go lift it up and go actually lift up your window and see if you can open it from the outside.
Mm.
See how dark your property is at night, and where you feel that it is really dark, add floodlights to those
Mm.
areas to make sure darkness is an enemy's best friend, because they can move around in those shadows, get close to your home, be in a position that you would not think they would be in, to try to understand what's going on inside of your home, to test your front door, to
Mm.
see if it's unlocked. Let me tell you, man, I see security videos all the time of people who kick in the front door of a home, and the first thing they do is they check the knob first to
Mm.
see if they can just walk on in, because there is this leftover impression that we all have that everything is like the Andy Griffith show and nobody locks their doors at night or anything like that and everybody just knows everybody. That was never really the case to begin with. It is certainly not the case now. So you
Right.
want to make sure that you're in the habit of locking your doors, locking your windows, those sorts of things, because it's those daily tasks that you do that are going to make the difference in those scared panic moments. So
Mm.
make sure that you're locking your door, things like that. With your door, I like to have some sort of secondary lock on it. Make sure that you have a deadbolt that works and that actually goes all the way in to the door frame. Use 2-inch screws to actually put the strike plate into the door. Because what a lot of people don't realize is when somebody kicks in a front door, it's the door frame itself that fails. It's not the
Mm.
lock. The lock always stays there. It's that door
Mm.
frame that just bursts open. So the longer the screws that you have in the door frame, the more that it's going to hold. A secondary lock, a lot of people have these little chain locks that's there. I hate to tell you, those are not going to do anything.
Mm.
They're not going to
Okay.
do. Those are like little 3/4 inch screws on it.
Yeah.
And so I could, like my 10-year-old could, Kool-Aid man his way right through that door if that's
Mm.
all that's there.
Yeah.
So a secondary lock that I do like is the flip lock. You and I were talking about that. Um, Good people behind that product, and it really does work. I'll let you guys research that. But believe it or not, the number one way that a criminal gets into your home is through the front door.
Mm.
It's not some like high-tech super mission where they're parachuting in on the roof and stuff like that. It's really, they come through the doors, they come through the windows. That's the easiest way into your house because that's how you get in and out. So
Mhm.
that's going to be how they get in and out. So if you can get an alarm system, if you can fortify your door, that's a great foundation for having a safe home.
Gotcha. Wonderful. I'm not even gonna I'm just gonna let that marinate for everybody. However, if you missed it, he did say the flip lock, and just kind of for those of you who are more interested in researching that, just make sure at the end of this and in the description, Andy's social media links will be in there. You guys can go on his social media page, and there's more information on the flip lock. So just if you heard any, if you didn't hear anything, just flip lock, because correct me if I'm wrong, regardless of whether you live in a house, apartment,
Hmm.
etc. As long as you have a front door, you know what I mean. You can
You
you
can
can
use it. Yes,
right.
you can use
Awesome,
it.
awesome. Okay, so as a father, how do I maintain situational awareness in public while also making my family feel comfortable in public?
Yeah, that is a good question. It is a complicated question, and
Mm-hmm.
it is one that I am constantly working on myself. So,
Mm-hmm.
I came to the understanding. By the way, just let's just say the situational awareness is the understanding of the environment and how it affects you.
Okay.
And that is when you see, for example, maybe you're at a restaurant and you see two guys who are getting in, they're getting heated over some sort of sports bet, and then all of a sudden they start fighting. Well, you seeing those cues that were going to lead to potential violence, that's situational awareness.
Right.
It's also knowing where you are in the building and that sort of thing. So when you start understanding situational awareness, you're going to be paranoid for the first few months that you really truly understand what it is. There's a great group called Arcadia Cognerati. Don't ask me to spell that. So
Gotcha. Okay.
it's Greg Williams and Brian Marin, and these are two of the smartest humans on the planet who teach this stuff.
Mm.
They are remarkable in what they do. So when you start to kind of learn from them the behaviors and the cues to look for, you'll start to think, oh man, there's going to be some sort of predator in every environment I ever walk into, because you've been given this new tool that's a hammer. And when you get a brand new hammer, you think everything looks like a nail. That's not the case. But that's part of the process that you have to mentally go through when you understand situational awareness. You are going to look, you're going to be actually looking for some sort of cue so you can use your cool new training that you've got and this new understanding that you've got. That's not the case. The majority of the places that we're going to go, thank God, nothing bad is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you do see something, it's going to be minor and it's not really worth grabbing your family and running out the door, that sort of
Got it.
thing. So there will be that time where you will feel paranoid, where you'll be looking around and you won't really be present with your family. You just kind of have to push through that. If
Mm-hmm.
that starts to last 6 months or longer, you're probably more in the paranoid stage and you need to kind of take a step back and see how that's going.
Okay.
So eventually where you want to get is understanding when you walk into a place where the nearest exits are. If something goes wrong, if there's a fire, something like that, you want to be able to keep your family kind of in front of you. I've always been one of these people, I could not sit with my back to the front door.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of people will do that. And I actually got corrected by Greg Williams one time. He's like, Andy, you do a lot of great stuff, but not every threat comes to the front door of where you are. And I was like, man, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. I hate to say, there was an argument at a fast food restaurant in our state last year, and a guy just went out to his truck, brought a gun back in, and shot his coworker in the kitchen. And if you were sitting there watching the front door, you might not have ever seen any of those cues happening. I
Mm.
hate to say it, stuff can come from anywhere. Generally, you're thinking that, if I'm sitting at a restaurant, somebody's going to run into the cash register, knock it over, grab all the cash and run out the door. I understand that. But there could also be, a fight at the bar. There could be a fight in the kitchen. There could be all sorts of things. So you just kind of want to position yourself where you can just kind of take in what's going on. And eventually, when you understand all these cues, you'll start to notice them without really even trying.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, your brain will be cued on to something going on and you will focus on it. My wife, I focused on a few things, and my wife's like, what do you see? It's like, how do you know? It's like, because you're staring, and it's like this. So you
Yeah.
kind of have to, you don't want to give yourself away. So
Yeah.
it's a process, but eventually you want to get to the point where you can sit down and talk to your family, take a quick look around and say, okay, everybody here kind of looks cool. Nobody's really getting heated or anything like that. And talk to your family, look around every once in a while to see what's happening around you, those sorts of things. Spot the the exits here and there so you know where to go.
Mm,
And eventually you just kind of want to just kind of work on a rotation. You're with your family, you take a second or two to glance around what's going on, and then you're back on your family again. And that's just what I call a secure habit. That's just the
okay.
habit you want to be in, just to kind of, mentally circle around the room and that sort of stuff. And if you do see a problem, if you do see something that makes you uncomfortable, you do need to pay it more attention. But it doesn't necessarily mean you need to go punch your way out of that problem,
Got
that
it.
sort of thing. You don't need to escalate that situation. So, honestly, most of the time, what I tell people, if you see something that you don't like, that you truly think is going to be a threat to your family, you get them and you go.
Hmm.
You don't go address that threat. You don't go running towards it unless you're law enforcement or military. You don't go running towards it. You get your family, you get up quietly, and you leave as quickly as possible. That's what you do.
That's huge. I'm just gonna let it all marinate for everybody because, like I said, you are the expert here. Two big things that I got from that is one, when you're in an establishment or just in any area, knowing where the exits are, right? Like
Mhm.
that's huge. At the very least, just knowing where the exits are, because you could miss the cues. You could miss the cues, but if something
Mhm.
happens and you're not expecting it, at least you know where you can get your family to safety the quickest. If something happens, always keep in mind, that masculine bone in us sometimes wants to go address that problem,
Sure.
right?
Yep.
but
Yeah, it
but
does.
when it comes to your family, the most important thing is getting them to safety first. And so that those are two great tools for my fatherhood toolbox that I'm definitely going to make sure that I, one, write down, and two, constantly repeat to myself too. Going forward, how do I keep my kid, now my kid's 15 months old, right? So um how do I keep him safe online? And you can answer this as though, maybe, down the line whenever he's
Sure.
surfing on his own. But yeah, what are some ways I can keep him safe online?
Well, first off, I am proud of you for thinking about this for a 15-month-old because that's where it starts.
Mm,
I, like 2 years ago, realized I was not as wise as I wanted to be when it came to online safety. So I said, okay, this is where I've got to go. This is what I've got to learn. So I sat down and started talking with experts. I started looking at problems, dissecting news stories. And what I found out was that the problem with online is not the internet itself. It's the other people. It's
mm-hmm,
just the internet is how other people get to you. It's how
mm-hmm,
other people target your children. So you need to start having conversations with your kids from an early age. There are so many digital problems out there that are solved with analog solutions. And that is just to simply sit down and talk with your kids about what's going on. Like my son, he likes to play Fortnite, and sometimes we'll play together. And he was asking me, hey, I want a headset so that I can talk with, other people and we can play the game better and that sort of thing. And I was like, hang on here, buddy. Because what you don't understand is a lot of times people are really mean and they're
mm,
going to say terrible things to you because they can't see you and they know that you can't reach through there and punch them in the face. There's no consequences for what they're going to say, that sort of thing.
yep,
So, and also as parents, we know that sometimes bad people are going to get into those games and they're going to start to talk to your kids, befriend your kids, which is the process of grooming. And so we don't want that to happen in a headset where we can't hear what's going on.
right,
Now, I have not imparted that to my son because that's not where he is in his stage of life yet.
right,
So when your kids get older, you can share that. Or if your kids, are, further along, you can share that sort of information with them. You can, as their parent, you know them the best. You know what they're ready for. So you can have versions of the conversation, layers of that conversation as they grow up. So yeah, talk to your kids about what the dangers of online are. And the one of the biggest things that I'm starting to see, and I just did a podcast episode on this at the end of the year, and it was about how the word friend has changed for our kids. Because when I was growing up, when you were growing up, friends were, people you had at school, at church, that you were able to physically see and interact with. Well, when you go and you play these games, you have a friends list. It's not
mm,
a friends list, it's a contact list of
right.
people that you want to play the game with. But your kids start to say, oh, my friend is online, I want to play with him. And I'm like, well, who is this friend? And it's like, oh, I don't know. And that's
Right.
a problem.
Hmm.
That's a problem. And that's just, something in their vernacular. That word means a lot to us as humans, and it's kind of been used differently in the digital world, that you have to explain to your kids, okay, they may technically be a friend on this game, but they're not a friend in real life. So they don't get that sort of access to you. They
Mm.
don't get to know that kind of information. You need to, tell your kids, you don't ever share, what school you go to, your age, if you don't want to share your real name, that sort of things. You don't do that sort of stuff where somebody could potentially track you down and find you, or build a profile enough on you to be able to persuade you to do something that you would never do.
Mm.
There's a lot of times, there's a guy, his name is Matt Murphy. We are not related as far as I know.
Okay.
Um, and he said, I don't need to do all these weird, strange things to groom your kid. All I need to do is like their video on TikTok or send them the latest character on Fortnite to start the process of grooming. So,
Wow.
and actually, in grooming, gift giving is one of the stages that's there. So, when you're talking with your kids, tell them don't share anything online with people that you don't know. You got to make sure that you understand that, your friend, chances are, is not a 10-year-old boy just like you. It could be, some, 18-year-old kid who means no harm, or it could be, a 56-year-old creep. You just don't know.
Right.
So you have to set up a set of rules that works for you and your household, and you need to abide by those.
Mm.
Your kids are not always going to make the greatest decisions in life, and that includes that sometimes they'll make bad decisions online, and you need to be there to address it. Also, as parents, I'll wrap it up by saying this: we're not going to always be there to monitor every single thing our kid sees online. So
Right.
you need to build trust with them. You need to build a level of respect with them, so that when they do see something that's not good for you in your household, and them for them in your household, that they can come to you and say that. They can say,
Mm.
"Hey, Dad, I saw this.
Yeah.
I wanted you to know." And you say, okay, I so appreciate you doing that. You don't just immediately punish them by taking the device away or the game away, whatever it is. You say, all right, let's talk about it. How did this happen? How did it make you feel? What can we do together to make sure that this doesn't happen again? So that's really, they need to see you as an authority, and they also need to see you as somebody who's going to be their protector. And that's when you can open the door to have those conversations.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Man, that's yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, Andy, thank you very much. I see a part two somewhere in the future.
Absolutely,
And
man.
and
Yes.
I think next time I'll have some scenario based, you know what I mean,
Oh, okay.
questions.
All
I
right.
think
That'll
I
be
think
fun.
that'll be cool. I think that'll be cool. You know what I mean? Like maybe scenarios that I've witnessed, or just, just
Sure.
scenario based stuff that maybe some of our other fathers have witnessed themselves, so that we can kind of just go through that. I think that'd be great. But yes, thank you so much for just extending yourself onto our channel, and giving us this level of wisdom that a lot of us don't even think twice about. At the very least, for me, it's blessed me a lot, and I'm gonna probably go through and listen to this, and or watch this multiple times. But I am, like I said, excited for hopefully having you on again in the future, just to further expand on this. But before we go, I know that you do have a book and a podcast. Do you want to just share that with our audience real quick?
Sure. You can find me at thesecuredad.com. My podcast is the Secure Dad Podcast. And I post just about a weekly show about what's going on. Just hit 200 episodes in 2022.
Nice.
Absolutely a lot of fun. It's a solo show sometimes, and then it's a conversation like you and I are having here, where I have awesome guests on to talk about their wisdom and their experience and what they've done. My book is entitled Home Security: The Secure Dad's Guide, and it is available on Amazon. You can get it in Kindle or paperback format. It's only about 90 pages long, because it is written for the busy parent. It's
Mm.
written for the parent who's balancing, hey, what's going on at church tonight? Do I have to help my kid with their homework? That sort of stuff. I want you to be able to knock it out in 2 to 3 sittings and actually practice what's in there. So it is written with parents in mind.
Wonderful, wonderful, Andy. Well, again, from my family and from the Ripple Effect organization, thank you so much for what you do as a father, for what you do as a protector, and for putting it out there for everybody to benefit from. It really means a lot to me. And like I said, like we always said here at Ripple Effect Fatherhood, we always just we seek to impact at least one person, and then if we can reach one person, that one person can reach another, and there you have your ripple effect. So I think what you're doing is amazing. I'm excited to read your book and follow more your content myself, and I'm sure our audience will do the same. So again, thank you for being on. We'll talk to you soon, and as always, you guys, thank you for being here.